very good evening to all other participants. My name is Veer Anand. I am the Associate Director for Study Abroad Admissions at upGrad. And along with me, I've got an alumni of Beacon College. Her name is Prithvi Bajpai. It gives me a lot of pleasure and happiness to have her on board here with us. She is going to be our guest speaker, and she will be speaking about various topics about the Australian education system, entry requirements, what are the course opportunities you can look at, what are your work opportunities after you complete your graduation or your post-graduation, visa requirements, so on and so forth. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Prithvi, and I'm going to request her to, take it up. For the sake of this webinar, I'll be taking up a few questions that we get from other participants, and I'll be addressing that to Prithvi. We've also got other moderators on the webinar who will be answering your questions while you're putting them down in the chat. So let's make this as interactive as we can, and we look forward to a brilliant session with Prithvi. Prithvi, over to you, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So lovely to be here. I just wanted to give a slight introduction about myself. So I did my Bachelor's of Engineering from Mumbai University, and I completed my engineering in 2015. I immediately applied for a Master's in Business Analytics and Information Systems at Deakin University, and I commenced my course in 2016. Throughout the time that I've been here in Australia, I've worked several jobs, and I've eventually ended up as a service delivery team leader at one of Australia's leading healthcare organizations and not-for-profit organizations. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'll be happy to answer them accordingly.
Thank you so much, Prithvi. So for the sake of all the participants who have just joined us, just to give you a quick introduction to the Australian education system. Australia has been traditionally a safe choice for Indian students who want to go abroad for higher education. What makes Australia so brilliant and so diverse is the number of universities and options that you have. In Australia, you've also got the Group of 8, which is a network of 8 leading Australian universities. Their degrees are globally recognized. 5 out of the world's top 30 student cities are in Australia. And just a bit of the trivia that there have been 15 Nobel laureates from Australia over the past 62 years. Moreover, the Australian government gives more than $200 million in terms of scholarships to international students every year. And of course, there's a very strong Indian migrant community, as well as a diaspora in Melbourne and Sydney. And Australia, just in terms of the lifestyle, in terms of the ROI, is better than a number of, other places worldwide. Which actually brings me to my first question to Prithvi. Ma'am, what do you think is the biggest difference in terms of the Australian education system compared to the Indian education system that you have experienced? You have been in Australia for over 3 years now. What do you think is the one factor that helps differentiate Australia compared to India and the other countries in terms of education?
I'll just give a brief about why I actually chose Australia and why it led to me deciding to go to Deakin University. So my initial plan was to pursue my master's in America, and I sifted through a lot of options. I gave the entrance exams, and when it actually came to factoring in the financial aspect of studying there, I realized that it was quite a big burden onto me, because at that time I didn't think I was financially able to handle this and go into choosing a degree in America. So the first thing that pushed me into looking into Australian degrees was basically how the amount of scholarships that Deakin was willing to offer me. And that was like the major factor in me deciding why I wanted to study there. Um, so in terms of the resources difference in between India and Australia, when I first landed here, um, I was given an introduction so as to what to expect with relating to courses. And um, for instance, I everyone struggles with moving on from something. With regards to engineering, when I study here, it was more like you write the assessments on paper. We don't have anything much to deal with online practicals or do much over an online submission form. So Australia in those terms is completely different. You submit your assignments online, you do your coursework. There's also this factor of plagiarism to count into, because we are obviously not trained for that. And we do not know how to paraphrase and do certain things when it comes to assignments and assessments when compared to our education system in India. So one of the major things that Deakin offered was the resources. They were so willing to educate us on how to access the resources that they were providing. They had certain web portals specifically to educate us on what needs to be done and what's expected assessments wise. There were rubrics which we had to meet when it came to doing your assessments. So that was quite an eye-opening thing, because usually you're just pushed into something without given the training or without given the right kind of resources. But here, everything was available at a click away. You had your own personalized profile at Deakin, and they actually offer you the resources to go and access what the university offers. So one of the biggest differences was coming from an educational background which did not actually offer you the support, to gradually moving to someone that was so supportive and considered all the needs, not only and including mental as well. Like, this was something that was eye-opening for me. There were the amount of resources available for mental health as well. It was extraordinary. So I think that was one of the great things about coming here and studying here at Deakin University.
That is lovely, Prithvi. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So if I were to summarize, I would say that the biggest difference in terms of the Australian education compared to what we experience back home is that the approach is a lot more hands-on. It's a lot more
right.
practical. There is lesser of theoretical discussions, and you're being introduced to real life examples in the form of case studies. Moreover, it is learning by discussion as opposed to learning from a textbook and trying to memorize facts and figures. Also, the resources in terms of an online library, your repository, and your access to that makes life as a student a lot simpler. Also, I understand that there would be group assignments, there would be group work. So it's working with students from multi-ethnicities, from different cultural backgrounds, and experiencing how different people across different countries collaborate. What is the outcome? What is the final outcome that they are looking for in terms of work? And, it is really diversity which helps you expand your horizon and become a better professional in the global market. So I think that is one feedback for all our participants here, is what really distinguishes the Australian education system from, other educational systems, especially the one that we have back in India. Now, in terms of the job markets, I understand that you are working in healthcare, you're a team lead, you are, working in terms of the analytics, your entire degree was analytics and management systems. What would you say are the job opportunities and the ROI that students have when they go to Australia? If you'd like to talk about your example and just help educate us, please, that would be lovely.
Yeah, sure. One of the things I would definitely very much recommend for people to take on part-time jobs when they're studying, because this is such an introduction into walking into an Australian workplace and what the environment is like. So you start off with something small, maybe in admin or hospitality, and you gradually move on to something because it gives you the confidence to find work in the organization or the field that you've actually studied for. So in my experience was, throughout when I was finishing my degree, I kind of realized that I may not be cut out for something to do with core analytics, because when my degree ended, I kind of realized it was something that I wasn't motivated to pursue further or even find employment in. And I always knew that I wanted to give back to the community and work in something that would work in tandem to the skills I actually have, which is speaking to people, interpersonal skills. And I landed my first job, like a proper office job, in an aged care sector, um, through which I moved on to something which is what I am working at the moment. So I wouldn't want to say that, I mean, I would like to say that there's a lot of opportunities out there, but it is up to us to harness the resources that we have, because universities also combined with a lot of organizations, and they have their employment fairs, and they support you a lot to find a job. But it is up to us to hone our skills and actually work for what we want to. In terms of opportunities in Australia, um, I know that people do struggle to find a job. There's a lot of factors in that. First is the language. Second is maybe they're not introduced to what an Australian working environment is and might struggle to cope with the kind of environment that they work in. And thirdly is, since a lot of people just look for they look for a job that they've graduated in, and might miss out on other opportunities which may not be in the field but could lead to something better. So there's quite a lot of opportunities, I would definitely say that, because in my current role we are actually looking for a lot of people, and we're just churning out the same advertisements on Indeed and Seek, because we haven't had people come into Australia for 2 years, and we've just lost a chunk of our workforce, and we keep needing a lot of people. So there are opportunities out there if you build the right set of contacts, and if you are good with networking, and you decide that this is something that you want to pursue. There's good set of opportunities out there. It's just that we need to have the right set of resources to hone them.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So if I were to recap what you just said, there are a number of resources that most colleges and universities extend to their students. They also have a placement cell, but at the end of the day, it really comes on to the student. It is the student's own hard work that helps leverage these facilities that they have. And at the end of the day, it really depends on what is the career path that you are looking at.
Absolutely.
And the facilities exist. It is just how well you can kind of get in tune with that and use that to find the right job. So that actually makes a lot of sense.
Correct.
And that actually comes to my next question. During your discussions, you mentioned that the Australian work environment is different than what we are used to. So can you just help us to understand, how does the Australian work environment differ? Is it to do with the diverse background of a number of nationalities there? Is it the working style? Is it a cultural aspect? We would love to know more about it.
So my understanding is that to a lot of people, a lot of things, it is hard coming to a different country and trying to assimilate in their culture. But to a lot of them, it could be a culture shock as well, because we aren't exposed to certain things back home. And when we come here, we realize that the work environment, which is ingrained in us, that it needs to be serious and formal, is not so in Australia. It is quite informal, and you kind of have that relationship at work where it's just work limited and people don't take it outside of work. Maybe sometimes after, like on a Friday or something, but nothing beyond that. It's just work, and it is quite informal. At the end of the day, when it comes to hierarchies and stuff, the fear that's inbuilt in us about having an authoritative figure or bosses is not so in Australia. You can freely approach your team leaders or bosses and discuss about the concerns or put your ideas forward. Second thing is diversity. Yes, there's a massive diversity, not in terms of just nationalities, but even gender, sexual orientation, and everything else. So to a lot of people, it might not be something that they're used to, but it is quite a good environment because you kind of become um, you kind of become assimilated to different things that you see in this world, and you become more and more accepting about what's been put forward you. So I think it's amazing. My experience so far is I've had a workplace which swayed both formal and informal. I've worked in a very formal workplace as well, but the current workplace that I'm working at kind of does not have those boundaries in terms of like having an authoritative boss figure. So we're free to pitch in our ideas, we're free to discuss about the organization as a whole without, without having to worry or to go to a certain hierarchy. So it is quite nice because it's opened up my perspective about so many different things, because I currently work with a set of age group that I didn't think that I would ever have exposure to. Like, I work with seniors a lot, people who are past retirement but are still working. And I think that's just incredible because it just opens your eyes to so many experiences that you might not have had in like a traditional workplace environment. So it is quite exciting. And I think it's made me a much more humbler and a much more open person when it comes to dealing with people.
Ma'am, that was lovely. Thank you so much for that wonderful perspective. And for all the participants who have been with us so far, just a little rabbit out of the hole is that as per the International Alumni Network and research agency AC Nielsen, the number of international students in Australia, more than 75% of them were very happy with the education they got, as well as more than 50% have stayed back and have settled in Australia. So the migrant population right now of international students between 2015 to 2020 is nearly 450,000. In terms of the number of applications we get from India for Australia, it's about 350,000, and more than 70,000 visas are being issued every year by the Australian High Commission for Indian Students. So in terms of a destination, in terms of the ROI, in terms of your job opportunities and satisfaction, it is right up there. And these are numbers straight from AC Nielsen. So I would encourage you all to research on that later. We may have a follow-up webinar in the next few weeks, but just to re-emphasize what Prithvi said, the job opportunity, the job market, and the entire style of working is something informal. It is intensive. However, having said that, your ability to mingle within the organization across different hierarchy levels is a lot more than you would traditionally have in India. So another point which goes in favor of what we were just discussing before. Now, Prithvi, just help me to understand. I know that you're an alumni of Deakin University.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, upGrad has also got partnership with Deakin for Indian students. So please feel free to reach out to us here. And whatever questions you have at the end of the webinar, we will give you a couple of mail IDs. Your questions, your interests, please put them to us and our counselors will be in touch with you. Now, Prithvi, just help me to understand, how was your entire application process to Deakin? How did you go about it? What were the requirements? Can you please tell us a little about it?
Yeah, sure. So I have to tell you that it was extremely quick. It was a blink and miss because I had almost packed my bags and I was ready to leave to Australia in a month's time. That was how quick the process at Deakin was. Like, I applied December end, and by February first week, I was in Australia. So the things that I needed was it was very, very quick. Only the visa took a while for it to arrive, but then with everything else, it was very quick. So what I needed was definitely a statement of purpose that I had prepared, just outlining everything about my background as well, and why I performed in what way, and explaining to if there were any gaps in between my studies, and talking about my hobbies and interests. So definitely a statement of purpose. There was also a GT interview conducted by a representative from Deakin, I think, where they asked me certain questions so as to why I wanted to come to Australia and why I wanted to pursue my master's at Deakin. There was also the English test, which I had to give. So the two things that were necessary for me to apply was to have my English test handy. At that time, I had, since I was already applying to universities in America, I had given my TOEFL, and my TOEFL test scores were pretty good, which is what they accepted, and which is why I ended up getting like a quick invite from Deakin, and I decided to proceed with that because of the scholarship that they offer. So it was done in very less time. From a perspective of a person who was also applying to different countries, I felt like there was very little needed to qualify for the Australian university. Like it was very quick. And then once the invite came, I prepared my financials and everything else, you know. So that's another process. But when it comes to applying, it's just a statement of purpose and to keep everything handy, your English test scores, which are very important.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
And, this would actually bring me to my next question. I've seen a few people also ask me that during the chat here. So just to add, when you're applying for your Australian visa, you need to keep in mind 6 documents. These are your electronic confirmation of enrollment certificate, or the ECOE. Then you will need a genuine temporary entrance statement, which is your GTE. Then you will also need to furnish your financial requirements that you can fund your studies. Do keep in mind that you need to keep your funds to make sure you have got your return airfare, your tuition fee, and a sum of at least 18,610 Australian dollars to show that you can survive there. Your English proficiency test results, which can be the IELTS or the PTE. Some universities are also accepting the TOEFL, but it's normally the IELTS. Finally, you will also need your Australian approved health insurance cover, and they will do a verification of your criminal records. Beg your pardon. Now, now there's been a lot of news about Australia opening up for international students. And this is something that I would, like to discuss and also take in Prithvi's opinion on this. So the Australian Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment a few weeks ago came on to BBC and, spoke about how Australia is going to open up. Yes, the good news is that they are going to open up, and it will be as soon as December. There was also talk about how states and universities will be sharing the cost of the quarantine if it is applicable for Indian students. There is a backlog of more than 2 years for Indian students who wanted to go to Australia. So, of course, they will be getting preference on their return. Having said that, please, please, please keep your eyes peeled on newspapers and on the Study in Australia website so that you will get all the details. It's been more than 560 days and various international flights that have been grounded, and overseas travel has pretty much come to a ticket. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and this is all expected to change. So I think this is something which would actually help a number of our participants here as well. Prithvi, now, just help us to understand, while you're a student in Australia, is there any facility to kind of fund your tuition or your living by working part-time? How is that? Is that something which students normally do? How do you go about it? I'd love to know more.
Absolutely. And I did fund my tuition the last trimester by myself. So I'll just give you a go about on how I went. So the first trimester obviously did not look for work because I just wanted to prepare myself so as to what I was expecting when it came to assessments and the degree that they expected us when it came to our work and our assessments. So I did not look for work at the first trimester, but I would encourage you to do so. There's different sites. I would recommend that you start looking for jobs in your university campus first. Because they pay you a fair rate, you get the hours that you want, which is the 20 hours, and on your breaks, you can work for more than 20 hours as well. So university is a good place to start. For people, there's a lot of factors to consider. Moving to a different country is a big, big change. So please do not demonize yourself if you feel like you haven't ended up having a job in the first trimester. It's a very hard transition to make. Just be patient with yourself. The second thing that I found was beneficial for me to find a job, there's a local website which is called as Gumtree, Gumtree. So on Gumtree, a lot of hospitality owners put up advertisements for waitressing, as a barista, and these are good hours because it may not be on campus, but it's something that you can have a look into because it's easy to get these jobs. What I did is after I went to uni, I'd find all the numbers on Gumtree, and I would personally cold call them and text them asking them if they've got any work when it came to waitressing and any other hospitality jobs. So that is how I got my first job, as a waitress through Gumtree. It was good, and I would recommend for people who first come there to first search those, and then gradually I think you build confidence through doing these jobs. You find other avenues and you pick up other jobs as well. Always keep an eye out for advertisements at unis. Definitely, they're always looking for people, and they pay you a very good rate as well compared to working in cafes and restaurants. But everything builds character when you move to a different place. Doing any kind of job builds character and resilience, and I would recommend you to do that. So from the money, from the 20 hours that you work, I'm sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. From the 20 hours that you work, you might be able to pay for your lodgings and save a bit. But the biggest factor is during vacations. You can work for 40 hours, and that's more than enough to at least pay for your units for the next trimester and be prepared and save for yourself, or go on trips or travel around, whatever you wish to. So yes, I would definitely push for financial independence. Although don't burden yourself, see what you can handle when it comes to education, and accordingly decide how many hours you wish to work. But definitely, yes, do search for a job on Gumtree and also at your universities in the beginning. So that's a good way to start at. Plus, throughout, when you're at the end of the trimester, or maybe if you finished a year, you can also try applying for office jobs and start off with like internships, which can gradually lead to like a permanent offer once you're graduated. So yeah, it's pretty good. So keep an eye out for opportunities. There's always there. It's just about deciding what's good for yourself and being patient with yourself.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was most helpful. And just to add to that, a student on a student visa in Australia is entitled to earn a minimum wage of $18.23 per hour, or a maximum of $720 per week. So if there is a facility for you to finance your tuition or your living expenses, that is something which you can always do. Earn while you work and reduce the burden on the expenses that you have to follow there. Now, this actually is something which I'd also like to talking about expenses. There are more than 4 major scholarships that are available for international students there. The first one is the Australian Government Research and Training Program Scholarship, or called the AGRTP. The first round deadline would be around 31st August. The second one would be 15th April of the next year. And they have a value of $25,587 per year. Then you've also got many scholarships like the Australian Awards, which would be the ACIAR or the DFAT. There are also Australian Awards for the technical and further education. You've also got a scholarship as part of the Australian Awards, which takes care of your entire tuition fee, the airfare, your living expenses, as well as the overseas student health cover, and all other allied expenses which are valid for the next 2 years. And then finally, you've got the Destination Australia scholarships, which has got a funding value of about $15,000 per student. And you have finally got the John Albright Scholarship, JAF, which is, ongoing right now. It was very prominent before the COVID days. And now that Australia is going to open its borders again, this would be a scholarship which I would urge each and every one of you to have a look at. At the same time, most of your colleges and universities would also have bursaries and grants as a part of their application process if you are a deserving candidate. So, Prithvi, this actually brings me to my next question. When you were applying for your course at Deakin, did you have a look at all the scholarship options available? And how did you go about it? Did you also get a scholarship? We would love to know that.
Yes, I did end up getting a scholarship, which was 25%. And it was based on my on the performance of my bachelor's degree. Now, at that time, I don't think I researched into it. It just came automatically with the agency that was helping me out with applying. So they are the ones who told me that you end up getting a bursary because of the marks that you've had at your bachelor's section. So yes, that was the biggest factor for me to choosing Deakin compared to all the other unis, because I did end up getting admission from RMIT and University of Wollongong as well, but it was twice of what I was paying at Deakin. So it was a massive relief because because it took off like a couple of thousands from per unit what I was paying. So I was, for the course that I was doing, it costed about $15,000 per trimester at that time. And it came about around to 10,000 because of the bursary, 10, 11,000. So it was a massive difference and it took a lot of pressure off me.
That is
so definitely definitely keep an eye out for scholarships. And I would just say that even if you don't find an opportunity to get a scholarship, please do not lose heart. There's like massive opportunities for people who do well while at their course at Deakin as well. I am not aware of this, but I had a friend who ended up topping in the course that we had, and apparently he received a certain amount of grant towards the end of the completion of his course.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, please don't be dejected. There's always opportunities out there. You've just got to harness your potential and work towards it. That's all about it.
That is lovely. And, just to add to that, for the sake of all our participants, just a reminder that upGrad Study Abroad has got a team of destination specialists for Australia. For any questions and help for your study abroad dream in Australia, please feel free to reach out to us. We will do an end-to-end service for you, right from building your profile to helping you shortlist universities to your application, be it the editing, your essays, your SOP, helping you with a letter of recommendation to any interview help, helping you with scholarship options, helping you with your visa, end-to-end package. And we do this completely free of cost. There is no charge that a student has to pay. And we also help you with your application fee waiver in terms of when you're applying to the colleges of your choice. Prithvi, we spoke about Australia as a destination, what differentiates the education system there, what is different in terms of the ROI, how you can actually capitalize on that, the job market, the visa, how you came over there. Now that you've been living in Australia for about 3 years now, what would be a couple of takeaways, or what is one thing you would like to tell your former self 3 years ago? Something that would actually help people and students to kind of, understand how to go about it, and what's the biggest change you feel you have experienced in the past 3 years while you've been there?
All right. So I've been here for close to 5 years.
Beg your pardon, 5 years now. There you go.
No, that's okay. So actually, what I would go and tell myself when I first landed here in 2016 was, I saw that I was very anxious about what other people were doing. And I always used to think, oh my God, this person has ended up getting a job. And which led to me not concentrating on what I wanted to do. And eventually, when I put myself out there, when I did all those jobs that I had to, when that resilience built after going through so many things, I realized that uh, coming here, you get the freedom to explore who you are truly without the pressure, without the guilt tripping that we have when we are back in India. So there's so much of pressure when it comes to society and parents and even peer pressure to perform in a certain way. But you can chuck those away when you come here and you start your life afresh, and you can actually scope out what you want to do and do amazing things with your life. So there's a lot of freedom when it comes to opportunities. Just because you've studied a certain thing, there's no pressure of you doing the same thing. You can obviously explore different pathways. There's resources available at your hand if there's something that you want to learn and get better at. You find an amazing set of people here, and sometimes um, they understand your predicament so much. They do understand that you've left your family and you've left your life back in India and wherever you're from, and you're surviving here by yourself. So one of the things that I've really I'm amazed was I never thought that I would even last here, to be honest, because I had a very sheltered life back in India. My parents did everything for me, and I did not have much exposure when it came to doing things by myself. Coming here was like a big reality check when it came to doing everything by myself and deciding what was good for me and going about that path and making those decisions. So one of the thing is, I know that higher education is a privilege for a lot of people. I do agree that, but I would say that if you have an opportunity, do definitely come here and see that things will only exponentially increase and profit you. I'm not saying that things are bad back home. It's just that it's a different kind of exposure when you come here, and you definitely build and grow yourself a lot personally. And that's my takeaway from this experience, more than financially or anything else. Yes, financially has been a big gain for me. I'm very happy because I'm exactly where I thought I would land when it came to financially pay off my education loan and think about what I want to do in the future with my personal goals. But also personally, I feel like it's been a massive growth for me, and I'm so glad that I took the leap of faith back in 2016 and I decided to do what I had to do. It's unnerving, it's daunting. I will always say that, but there is help out there for everything here. You just have to have the courage to access it, and there will be help always. So if you have an opportunity, I would definitely say please do take it. It's been wonderful for me, and I genuinely feel that it's been a massive character growth for me. So
That's
I would
fantastic.
recommend this experience this to everyone.
Super. Thank you so much for that. And
No
Prithvi,
worries.
now, after you finished your post graduation at Deakin and you tried to apply for a job, can you tell us a little about how you went about the post study work visa? To our understanding,
Yes.
there are two PSW that exist. One is the
Yeah. 480.
485 and the 476. Right now, the
Yeah.
subclass 485 and those below 500 are the ones that are eligible for students or to international students
Yeah.
who want to stay back in Australia. So, can you
Yeah.
please tell us a little about your journey, how you went about it, and how
Yeah.
you secured a
Sure.
job and you got the visa?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So I started applying for jobs when I was in my last trimester. And I will not joke, but I did apply to close to 300 to 400 places. So that was like my daily routine every day, just sit down and apply to jobs. One of the things that I did is I did not care what industry it was in. I just wanted to land an office job because I was so tired working in hospitality and it is a hard job. So I wanted to graduate into something that was like in an office, a sitting down position. It didn't matter what I wanted to do. With regards to the post-study work visa, so as soon as you receive your degree, so you get some time in between. where you're off your student visa and you apply for the 485 visa. It's a very easy process. Um, I'm, I don't, I don't think there are any kind of implications or barriers or any kind of thing where people do not get that visa. People automatically get their visa regardless of how they've performed in their master's or undergrad. It doesn't matter. So it's an automatic grant. So you pay a certain amount. You have to do a health test here in Australia itself, and you're granted that visa depending on whatever time it takes. So from the time that you've applied for the post-study work visa, you will stay on a visa called as bridging visa. So that bridging visa will give you the same amount of work rights. You can work for 40 hours and more. So you don't have to worry about like not having a job and waiting it out when you wait for the result. So you can continue working till you receive the result and then move on to the start of your visa. So depending on what course you do, there's a lot of things. I know that 2 years is like, it feels like it's a lot, but it's a less amount of time, to be honest, that I feel it just flies off. So you can decide what you want to do when it comes to your permanent residency in that time, or if you want to, pursue any kind of higher education or do your PhD. So yes, do keep an eye out for that. But when it comes to jobs, I don't want to sugarcoat it, but most of the people that I know have landed good jobs and are doing well for themselves. So I know that a lot of people fear what the prospects are of getting a job. It's just that you need to prepare yourself. Do not be afraid of rejection. Always ask for feedback in terms of where you've gone wrong and what you can do to be better. I see that people here appreciate when people go in person, drop their resume. So that works for hospitality jobs as well. Drop a resume, have a chat with them face to face. They also appreciate like calls. Let's just say you've applied to a job, call and follow up with them. They do appreciate all these things, and it shows that you're eager. So you don't have to have experience in that sector. You can always say that you can learn on the job and go ahead with it. So don't be afraid of all the things that they put in the job requirements that you need to have this and that. Just be eager and keen, and I think there's a world of opportunities out there for you, for sure.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And just for the sake of all the participants who have logged in, the cost of the subclass 485 visa, which lets students stay back as part of their post-study work visa, is about 1,650 Australian dollars.
Yes.
$1,500 is the cost, and 165 is the taxes and the processing fee, which is charged by the state. However, depending on where a student is, this can be extended. So typically, if you are in a major city, after a bachelor's degree with honors, you can work for 2 years. After a master's degree by research, 3 years. And after a doctoral degree, it is 4 years. However, if you are in cities and major regional centers like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, or Perth, Adelaide, Gold Coast, and Canberra, you can do a 2+1 for your bachelor's, a 3+1 for your master's, and a 4+2 for your doctoral degree. And for regional centers, as a matter of fact, you get a longer post-study work visa. So you can get an additional 1 year, which can be 3+2 for your master's and 2+2 for your bachelor's. For any questions on your Australian post-study work visa, there is a mail address that I've put down in the chat. Please reach out to Sudipta, and our counselors will be in touch with you and help you with all your questions on how to go about applying to an Australian university, especially if you want to apply to Deakin and follow Prithvi's example, or any questions you have about visa and helping you with your application. We'll be more than happy to help you with it. Now, Prithvi, it's been 5 years for you in Australia. What would you say is that, sometimes people feel homesick when they go to another country.
Yeah.
There are times you miss the cuisine, you miss family, you miss friends.
Yeah.
So how big of an Indian diaspora do you have in Australia? And have you actually felt homesick, or it just feels like home? Because I know that the Deakin has got a number of students from India who go there. As a matter of fact, India accounts for 25% of all students in the major cities in Australia, especially for bachelor's and master's courses. So, what's been your experience while you were studying there?
Well, yes, there's a lot of people here, and especially from all parts of India. So you meet a lot of them. What I'd like to say is, I know a lot of people try to insinuate that life abroad is amazing. I feel like you pay a price everywhere, even whether you're in India, whether you're in Australia, you pay a price everywhere. So, in terms of work-life balance, in terms of uh, um, you know, environment and health and the government looking after you, yes, definitely we have all those benefits in Australia. But yes, you do get homesick. When it obviously the food does not match if you order or eat from outside. There's certain places that, especially in Melbourne, there's a lot of places here Indian, definitely. So you wouldn't have to feel that you've um, missed a part of home. There's food here, and you meet a lot of people from your country. So that's not there, but there's certain things about your family or customs that you miss, which you might not have exposure to here. But yes, um, I wasn't very homesick because I was hell bent on coming here, and if that meant staying away from my family, I think I was ready to pay that price because it was quite motivated to come and make something of myself. And the funny thing is, when I came here, I was of the mindset that, oh, I'm never gonna go back to India. I'm just gonna be here. But since I've come here, I've done what I wanted to do. I just feel like, yes, I'm now open to different things, and it doesn't even matter if I'm back home. So there's so much shift in thinking. It just you grow when you go to a different place, and it's there. So yes, there's parts of you'll be homesick on some days, especially during festival times right now. And since Australia's been like in a strict lockdown, yes, I do miss home, but then it's a price that you pay anyways. It doesn't matter where you're here or India, there's something to be paid.
Brilliant. And, just like to also take this opportunity to wish all our participants, our panelists, especially you, Prithvi, a very happy and safe Dussehra for tomorrow. I know that today is a major festival in many parts of the country, a run up to that as well. So here is upGrad wishing you guys a very happy Dussehra and a very happy festive season going forward. Now, Prithvi, we've spoken about the Australian education system. We've spoken about your experience there. We've also spoken about how you apply for a visa, how you look at a post-study work visa. Now, in terms of the actual job market there, in your opinion, what are some of the major sectors that have traditionally, had a lot of Indian students or international students there? I know that engineering, healthcare, science, and technology have always been, really big. Apart from these, which would be some of the other specialty sectors that you would like to highlight?
So when I first came in, there was a massive demand for business analysts, IT, and accountants. It's not the same anymore. There's a lot of demand for people doing community services, healthcare, nursing. There's also a big demand of people in hospitality. So definitely caring sectors in aged care, in healthcare, and hospitality. Right now, the big industries are those. When it comes to organizations for technical jobs, right now I would say there's a lot of need for people specializing in blockchain, cryptography. So these are the emerging fields that recently I've heard like a lot of people, wanting people who've got knowledge in blockchain and cryptography, definitely coming up in Australia. Business analysts, not so much anymore, but still, if you're good at what you do, what's stopping you from getting a job? It doesn't matter, just because a certain industry is not in demand, doesn't matter. There's no jobs. There's always going to be jobs in whatever field that you're in. But definitely, I think caring sectors at the moment have a dire need of workers, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. So it could be from anything, from doing a master's in community services, or could be nursing as well. So there's a lot of demand for that at the moment because of the current pandemic situation. We are desperately in dire need. And let me tell you, I applied for my permanent residency as a business analyst. I've been waiting in queue for the past 2 years because the Australian government was great. We do not need any more accountants and business analysts. We want nurses and people in healthcare at the moment. So definitely keep looking at the different trends, I would say. The Department of Home Affairs is an incredible site if you're wanting to know what what field has been given permanent residency and what's their current demand in terms of, like, what job or what field the particular person that they're looking for. So you can keep an eye out for that. Yes, technical roles, I'm not quite sure. But yes, there's a demand for everything at the moment because they haven't had people come in for the past 2 years. So all sectors are desperately struggling for people and for workforce. So keep trying. Yeah.
Thank you so much for those insights. And yes, the Department of Home Affairs, as well as websites such as Gumtree to find a quick gig, would definitely help students. Having said that, please do have a look at your recruitment and placement section of your colleges and universities. They would also talk about some of the industries that have a high demand. If I were to talk about a couple of industries that have really picked up in Australia over the past 2.5, 3 years, it would be cryptography, it would be data and security, it would be business analytics as well. And apart from that, because of the Australian health system, just for everybody's benefit, Australia is a state where a lot of your health is subsidized because of the taxes that you pay to get your social security card. So there's a lot of emphasis on nurses, on doctors. And as a matter of fact, Prithvi would also kind of agree with me on that a number of specialty doctors there would be of Indian origin as well.
Absolutely.
And having said that, at the end of the day, the actual onus comes to the student, comes to the prospect to see what is the career path he or she wants to take. My suggestion, being in the study abroad field for nearly 15 years, would be create a goal for yourself. Look at your career path 5 years in the future. Your education is a means to building your career path. It is not the actual goal itself. Look at what interests you. Look at how the Australian education system helps you. Look at the various facets for study in Australia that upGrad has. Please get in touch with our team. So dipta.chopra@upgrad.com. Please put your questions to her. We'll be happy to help you. And once again, education is not the end means. Education is a means for you to achieve your end mean. This is something that I was taught at school, and my faculty, as a matter of fact, was reciting an old Egyptian proverb. So education is something which nobody can take from you. And Australia is one of the world leaders in education. So on that note, I'm going to give our panelists, our hosts and speakers a few minutes back. Thank you so much for all the questions. This session has been very interactive. A big thank you to Prithvi for taking the time and for logging in at 2 o'clock at night in Australia to be a part of this host and this to help us with the webinar. Thank you to all our participants. A big thank you to Sudipta for being a wonderful moderator and doing all the questions. And again, please feel free to reach out to us for all your questions for Australia Study Abroad and Study Abroad world over. Our counselors will be in touch with you. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and we look forward to meeting you in the next edition of upGrad Study Abroad webinars. Thank you so much. Take care and goodbye.